Hello, hello, hello. I'm author and entrepreneur, the Cerebral Palsy Vigilante, Zachary Fennell. As a CP Vigilante, I am naturally very involved in the Cerebral Palsy community. That's a phrase, Cerebral Palsy community, that I've used a lot before, and that I'm sure if you're watching this, you've probably used it too. The thing is, that phrase, cerebral palsy community, can create an illusion of a simplistic and one-dimensional community. A community where everyone gets along harmoniously. And that's not exactly the case. This has been on my mind since last week. I was sitting on the Greyhound reflecting on a trip I had. Sitting on the Greyhound, getting ready to depart, go back to Cleveland. I was returning from Cincinnati, where I spent the weekend meeting up with some individuals I've met, some individuals with cerebral palsy who I've met through online. This is my second such trip in the past 3 years to Cincinnati. And just reflecting on and a couple of those people that I visited this time around, expect videos with them coming soon in the upcoming weeks. But anyways, as I'm seeing, reflecting about that past weekend and then even my trip a few years before, the complexity of the cerebral palsy community just really hit me. And I think before I even go any further with it, I should really that decision to even meet up is one that you don't take for granted. It is not a situation where you find someone on Twitter or you find someone through a Facebook group where you go, you have cerebral palsy? I have cerebral palsy. Let's meet. That's one of the illusions I feel the phrase cerebral palsy community can create, is that because we all have this diagnosis, we all get along and harmoniously. It's not always the case. Cerebral palsy is only one aspect of who we are, and attitude plays a role. These connections, I've made a lot of my connections through co-hosting the Cerebral Palsy Twitter chat, #CPChatNow. I remember one day telling someone I had come across on Twitter about who I found out had cerebral palsy, so I'm telling them about CP Chat Now, and this was a few years ago, and the person goes, well, I have cerebral palsy, why would I want to talk about it? And that attitude was just an example of how we don't always, the attitude differences influence that interaction between ourselves, and so it's not always so harmonious. And attitude is a big aspect, as if anyone you would interact with, but it's not the only aspect either. This really came true before I recorded the videos with Daryl Perry and Hannah Pike last weekend. With Daryl, I spent probably an hour and a half just talking content creation with him. Daryl's got a podcast, he's done blogs before, so we're just sharing our experiences, recommending resources to each other. And it was just an hour and a half of nothing cerebral palsy related. It was just talking about content creation, that shared interest we have. With Hannah and I spent an entire evening watching NBC's Songland and commenting, and given we both have a mutual love for music, we were just able to really give each other our thoughts as the show progressed, and the songs featured were further developed. and giving our thoughts on what we liked, what we didn't like, and that was just from having that mutual interest, that shared love of music. And that shared interest is another component to the cerebral palsy community. The way I look at it is cerebral palsy, and as I see on the Greyhound, this is kind of what came to my mind. Cerebral palsy is having is like that diagnosis is giving you your ticket into a music festival. A music festival like the Vans Warped Tour, who has multiple stages and different acts playing at the same time. Cerebral palsy is that diagnosis gives you that's your admission, that's your ticket admitting you into the music festival. And once you're in, you're gonna see you might choose to see a different band from someone else because you wanted to see that band more than that band. And so you get different experiences. And even if you see the same band, the meaning of a song could be more significant to you, so even then the experience is still different. And that's essentially what I wanted to bring round to our point here today, is that when we keep using the phrase cerebral palsy community as a whole, and I'm not suggesting we avoid that phrase because that'd be pretty impossible to do, to have a discussion. I wanted us to pause, take a moment, and really think about what that phrase means, the fact that it's not this simplistic, one-dimensional viewpoint. Cerebral palsy connected me and Hannah. Cerebral palsy connected me and Daryl. But from there, our friendships have grown to be based off our other interests. Because if you're just talking cerebral palsy, eventually that conversation is going to get dull and monotonous, and there is much more to it. So it's that in my mind, it's that music festival of, a great analogy for it is that music festival. Of course, that is my opinion. I'm sitting here telling you that it differs for each person. So why don't you share in the comments below what your experiences have been within the cerebral palsy community. Do you like that analogy of it being a music festival? How would you describe your experiences interacting with others in the cerebral palsy community? Have you met anyone in person from those connections you've made online? Again, leave all that feedback, add to the conversation in the comments below. While you're down there, click the thumbs up button to show you like today's video. If you're not already, subscribe to my channel, hit that bell icon so you receive email notification every time I release a new video. And while the Don't Blend In, Blend Out poster may not be visible in the background here, as always, remember, don't blend in, blend out.